Hi guys, welcome to this deadlift series. This series consists of 6 separate movements that are aimed to teach you how to do and teach a conventional deadlift. There's lots of different types of deadlifts, so don't get caught up too much in the names. This isn't a Romanian deadlift, a stiff leg deadlift, a sumo deadlift, or any other kind of deadlift. This is a conventional deadlift. And we're eventually going to be leading up to the 6th and final episode, which teaches us how to do a barbell conventional deadlift. The first 4 videos are really just preparatory movements for the deadlift, making sure that we can correctly control the spine and correctly activate the glutes before we move on to any weight-bearing exercise. The final 2 videos are focused on the deadlift technique itself. So you may find that actually the first 4 are not necessary, especially with more advanced trainees, trainees with particularly good coordination. It may be a little bit of overkill, but you know that with this series that if you get stuck at any stage, if any of your trainees get stuck at any stage, you can just go back a stage and just find a level, something that will help fix that trouble spot. The very first stage of this isn't really a movement at all, or it's not really an exercise at all. It's just first of all teaching us to have control of our spine and have control of our pelvis and know where they are in space. And it gives us an opportunity to just drill in some cues so that we can use them later on down the line with trainees. So I break this down into 3 parts, but we're going to keep it all in the first video. Otherwise, it's just going to be way too much overkill. So the very first part is just anterior pelvic tilt and posterior pelvic tilt. So if I show you from the side, it's just going into posterior pelvic tilt and flattening the back, and anterior pelvic tilt. Posterior pelvic tilt, anterior pelvic tilt. This might seem like not really got anything to do with the deadlift, but later on when we're teaching people to when we've got people trying to lift up weight and they've got their back rounded, we can then re-drill in that anterior pelvic tilt, stick your bum out, and it should help them. So at this point we want to kind of make sure they've got full control of their pelvis and they know how to control their pelvis and their spine in this way. And you can drill in, you don't have to use the words anterior pelvic tilt. You can say sort of tilt your pelvis forward, stick your bum out, arch your back. Use different cues so that there's a few things involved. And then, flatten your back, tuck your bum under, things like that. Then once we've got that basic sort of pelvis movement, we know how to do that, that's all good, then we can move into a cat-cow. We use this in yoga, really simple movement, most of you will know it. I'm too low down here. If I come over here. Just looks like this. And it's the exact same movements that we were using before with the standing posterior pelvic tilt and anterior pelvic tilt. Just stick your bum out, straighten your spine. Again, round your back, stick your bum out, straighten your spine, round your back, stick your bum out, straighten the spine. It's the same anterior posterior pelvic tilt, just with a little bit of extra spine movement. This is going to be helpful later on down the line when your trainees are in a rounded back position and you want to tell them stick your bum out, chest up, straighten your back. Then you can refer back to that cat-cow. And the third movement is just a kind of standing cat-cow. You come into a standing position, send your bum back and put your hands on your knees. And from here again, just rolling the back and sticking the bum out and straightening the back. Rolling the back, sticking the bum out and straightening the back. posterior pelvic tilt, anterior pelvic tilt. It's the exact same movement that we just did on the floor, but doing it standing while your knees stay in the same position and then tucking your pelvis may seem like a super obvious thing to do for a lot of us, but for some people it's not all that easy. It sort of imitates a deadlift posture more, so that then it transfers more later on when we're actually trying to lift a kettlebell up or a barbell up. And we can just remind our trainees, remember, stick your bum out, straighten your back. Just making sure earlier on that they've got full control of that spine and of that pelvis. Another thing to keep in mind is that some trainees are going to have very limited thoracic spine range of motion. They're going to be very hunched over, and the spine is going to be very, very stiff, and they're going to find it very hard to straighten that upper back. If that's the case, you have to work with where they're at. The second major mobility issue may be hamstring length, and trainees are going to find it hard to get into this position, and they're going to have to kind of bring their knees further forward. We can talk about the things that we can do to work on that while we're doing the deadlift later on in the series. But for now, this first part is really about spinal control and pelvis control, so that we can apply it later on down the line with the deadlift.